Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Erickson, the program chair for the Geological Society of Minnesota. We've been in existence since 1938, and we offer lectures and information to people who are interested in geology but are not professionals. We get lecturers from all across the country, and tonight we have somebody from University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point. Lisa Siewert is joining us. She has a bachelor's and a master's degree in geology and recently completed an MS in Cartography and GIS at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and will be talking to us about an interesting project she's been working on. She's originally from Michigan, has been to Greenland and been to Antarctica, so she's been all over the place, and can fill us in some more on that too. So, Lisa, please join us.
Great. Welcome, everyone. I am going to tell you a little bit about the geologic history of Wisconsin, dive into what the Ice Age Trail is, and then show you the app I created as part of my master's in Cartography and GIS program. I'm a very casual person, and I welcome questions. Feel free to interrupt me using the methods that the moderators shared. I don't need to just stand up here and talk the whole time. So if we want to have a conversation, we can. But to get us started, I'm going to have you imagine Wisconsin along the Ice Age Trail, the ice margin, about 18,000 years ago. And at that time, you wouldn't have seen a forest. You would see a big, tall wall of ice, something like we see on the screen. And everything along the Ice Age Trail is a consequence of this big wall, tall layer of ice. So my plan for the talk today is to go cover the geologic history of Wisconsin, talk about how glaciers worked, and then describe how you can read the landscape, and then I want to show you the map that I created. So in Wisconsin, the oldest rocks in Wisconsin are about 2.8 billion years old, but they're not very widespread. Most of the oldest rocks in Wisconsin are about 1.8 billion years old. They make up the base of the continent. During that time, there were large mountain ranges that were forming in the center of the state. These big, tall mountains that were made up of igneous rocks and metamorphic rocks, and those eroded away. And here we have a geologic map of Wisconsin. And this green area right here that makes up the center of the state, north central state, are the roots of those ancient mountains. They're no longer, it's not mountainous anymore. The mountains eroded away. But you can see this red line here. That is the Ice Age Trail. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Ice Age Trail, the Ice Age Trail is a super long, 1,200 mile long national park. It's a trail system that's maintained by volunteers and a central agency out of Cross Plains, Wisconsin, called the Ice Age Trail Alliance. And what you're seeing on the screen are the completed segments, but there are ways that you can walk to go from one segment to another segment on roads. But the parts that you're seeing on the screen are actual trail segments that would go through a forest or an open plain, like, a trail, not a road. So much of the northern part of the trail system is on those ancient mountains that make up the heart of the state. After that, there was a gap in time. So in geologic history, it's kind of like reading a book where you get a snapshot in time and then there's some pages missing. So it's like you open the book and you're reading chapter 1, you're like, okay, there's mountain ranges, cool. Those mountains eroded away. Got it. You turn the page and it's like, oh man, chapter 2 is missing. Then you have to go to chapter 3. So we call those gaps in time and unconformity. So there's a gap in time. The next thing we see are some tropical seas that come into the state. These seas were pretty shallow. There were rivers flowing off of the continent where those mountains existed. They brought a bunch of sand. Those streams were carrying sand and deposited it onto the edges of the continent. That sand got turned into a rock called the Baraboo Quartzite. So if you ever have the opportunity, if you're in Wisconsin, to go to Devil's Lake State Park, you will see these most beautiful quartzite. Quartzite is a super hard rock that's made out of sandstone that gets heated and compressed, and it turns into the hardest rock. And on the right here are some ripples that we see in the Precambrian quartzite in the Baraboo Formation. And over here are ripples formed on a beach, a modern day beach. So the ripples are the same. So this was a beach sandstone that got metamorphosed, and it still exists today. And I cannot I cannot emphasize enough that if you are passing through, you need to swing by Devil's Lake State Park. It's phenomenal. After the tropical seas, there was another big gap in time. We have 0.6 billion year gap in time. We're going from the tropical sea environment to now we have some volcanic activity occurring. The continent is starting to rip apart. Oh, this is a pretty crappy image, but the continent is starting to extend. It thins out, and we have these eruptions of volcanic rock onto the surface of the Earth. That's called the Midcontinent Rift. There were some volcanoes nearby that, as part of that rift system, that brought lava with it that moved across the surface of the Earth and hardened into volcanic rocks. And this is a map of that Midcontinent Rift system. You can see the western part of Wisconsin has a big chunk of that Midcontinent Rift, and it extends all the way down to Kansas and up and over. Makes up much of the cool geology that we were talking about before the lecture started up in the UP. So on the Ice Age Trail, we see these volcanic rocks that were emitted by those volcanoes as part of the Midcontinent Rift over in St. Croix River Valley on the western edge of the Ice Age Trail. So Interstate State Park is where you can begin your Ice Age Trail journey, and this is what you would see. You'd see these lava volcanic rocks there. After that, we have another enormous gap in time. So you go from 1.1 billion year record with the Midcontinent Rift to another tropical sea coming into the state. These seas brought with them some sediments, much like we saw before with the sediments that were deposited to create those beach sands for the Baraboo quartzite. This is an example of that. So here, this is at Devil's Lake State Park. This is where you have the Precambrian rocks down below, those ancient Baraboo quartzite down here. And then up here, you can see chunks of the Baraboo quartzite in this rock called a conglomerate. So a conglomerate is a rock that's made up of gravel pieces that are consolidated together to form a rock. And so these rocks and above this line, so I'm going to drag my mouse along this line here. These rocks are significantly younger. They're 1.2 billion years younger than the rocks below. So this line that you can physically touch on the East Bluff Trail of Devil's Lake State Park is called the Great Unconformity. And back when we used to have funding for field trips, I would take my students and I'd have them all stand and touch that, and then we take our class photo at this exact spot. So, because it's a cool thing to be able to touch the great unconformity and to have it be so visible. During these tropical seas, we start to see Wisconsin's state fossil, which is the trilobite. Those critters were moving around on the bottom of the tropical seas. And I really like this map. So I'm going to walk you through this. So we have different periods in geologic time. So the Cambrian, which is the time period that we're talking about with our little trilobites, about 540 million years ago. And then this is a showing Wisconsin where it was located on the globe. And you can see during the Cambrian, with those trilobites moving around, Wisconsin was actually tropical. It was below the equator in the tropics. And then slowly over time, it moves up north to its current location as part of plate tectonics and the movement of the proto-North American plate. So Wisconsin was not an island floating out there. It was connected to other parts of the Laurentian landmass, but it, uh, it was moving. And I just think this is cool to show where Wisconsin was over time. So we went from very tropical with our axis on the side, and then rotated back up to its current location at about 45 degrees north-ish. So going back to this map, the Cambrian rocks with the trilobites and the rocks right above that great unconformity make up the kind of grayish color on this map. These are the Cambrian sedimentary rocks. They're much, much younger than this part of the state. And then there are little islands of older rocks. So Devil's Lake State Park is down here, where you have the hills, the Baraboo Hills are sticking out of the ground because they're made out of that super hard quartzite. And the Cambrian rocks were eroded around that away from them, and the super hard Precambrian rocks stayed. So on the either side, after the Cambrian, you move into a time period called the Ordovician, then the Silurian, and the Devonian. These are other gaps, ages in time. Wisconsin still had tropical seas. We had lots and lots of limestone deposited. This rivers were not flowing off the continents with lots of sand. It was kind of like Florida. Florida doesn't have big river systems. Um, and so the Florida environment is dominated by limestone because it's a warm, shallow ocean. You get the creation of limestone. So think about Florida. That's kind of what Wisconsin was like during these time periods. If we go back here, the Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian are these different letters here. You can see Wisconsin's still in the tropics. It's getting closer and closer to the equator, so it's pretty warm still. We have lots of limestone deposited, and that limestone uh, created the Niagara Escarpment. So in Door County, which is when you look at Wisconsin, it's the arm sticking out into Lake Michigan, right next to where the Packers dominate the NFC North. We have the Door County, and it exists because there is the super resistant hard dolomite rock. It's just a reinforced limestone is what dolomite is. It has some magnesium in it, makes it a quite hard rock. And the beds are dipping away from Green Bay. So we have this ledge that sticks out and it creates this little cap. And we call that the Niagara Escarpment. And the Niagara Escarpment makes up much of Door County. So this is that arm sticking out of Wisconsin. And the Niagara Escarpment goes all the way up through the southern part of the UP over through Canada, and then most famously where the Niagara Falls are, which is where it gets its name from. Um, the escarpment makes up the big waterfall that is Niagara Falls. And then, so that's the bedrock of Wisconsin. Then we have another lots and lots of pages missing from our book. We get up to 30,000 years ago, and this is when we start seeing things geologically happening. So it's pretty quiet for about 400 million years. And then we start to get glaciers coming into Wisconsin. Um, about 30,000 years ago, there was this enormous ice sheet that covered much of North America called the Laurentide ice sheet. And in Wisconsin, you could step on the Laurentide ice sheet and walk all the way to Siberia. You could get up to Greenland. It was all connected by just stepping on the ice sheet and avoiding crevasses. We'll talk about those in a second. So this is a really cool video that shows how the Laurentide ice sheet moved in Wisconsin over time. So we have the outline of Wisconsin here. The blue that you're going to see, those are glacial lakes. Those are lakes that existed only during glacial times. And then you'll see a time clicking by. And I just want you to see it's kind of like a heartbeat where the ice advances and then retreats and advances and then retreats. So I'm going to push play on this video. And you can see there's glacial lakes forming and then disappearing. You can see all of Lake Michigan is covered up, and then it will start to be uncovered. And then recovered, and then uncovered. Oh, and now it's shrinking, and then it comes back. So that was a pretty fast walkthrough. But this guy right here, Dave Michelson, he was my mentor when I was at Madison for geology. I had a different advisor, but Dave's office was next to mine. And if you ever have the opportunity to meet Dave, he's a character. If you've ever been able to go on a hike with him, listen to any of his presentations, he's such an interesting guy. And I don't know if you guys can see me, but he wrote this book called The Geology of the Ice Age Trail. And I'm going to be referencing this book a lot. So this is Dave's book that he spent the last few years of his uh, retirement, early retirement working on. But he's very prolific and he works with the local geologic survey. We call it the Wisconsin Natural History Survey to create things like this. So he's great. That was my quick and dirty 15-minute run through of the geologic history of Wisconsin. I want to stop here and see if there's any questions. That was a very broad stroke, but I feel like I'm talking to myself right now. So if there's any questions, ask away. Otherwise, I can just keep going with my talk.
There is a question here from Mary Helen. How much of the Ice Age Trail is wheelchair accessible, assuming the
Ooh,
snow is melted, of course?
such a great question. Unfortunately, not a ton of it is wheelchair accessible. I don't know the number off the top of my head. I wish I had that information, but it's definitely less than 20 miles. There are parts of the Ice Age Trail that go along Wisconsin state trails. So up in my neck of the woods in Wausau, there's the Mountain Bay State Trail, which is a rails to trail, and the Ice Age Trail follows that for a little bit. And I have done a hike for um, oh my goodness, assisted living community, and they were able to use an adaptive wheelchair to go out along that trail. And I just talked to the participants about some of the geology along that segment, and they enjoyed it. But again, it's not very accessible without um, uh, an adaptive wheelchair, and even then, you'd want it to be a pretty stable, like rails to trails. So not a lot. We do a lot of work. I maintain a segment of the trail, and it's a lot of work to build the trail and then maintain it. So we do the best we can, but it is not very wheelchair accessible.
And there's a question from Steve. Will your work expand to other counties?
Ah, yes. Uh, we'll get to that. Yes. When I show you the app that I made, I'll get into that in more detail.
And also, another question: can you send us the links to these maps, and we'll
Yeah,
put them on our website for
absolutely.
all of our people. Thank you.
Remind me if I forget.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, that's it so far. I will let you continue.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so here's an outline of the Ice Age Trail. There is this weird part in the middle where you can choose to go one way around the Baraboo Hills, or through the Hills another way. Um, and this is called the bifurcation. Uh, it's you choose your own adventure. You can do one side or the other side. If you hike the whole trail, you're called a 1,000 miler, and there's over 2,000 milers now that have completed the whole trail. Uh, Anyways, so on there's two terminuses of the Ice Age Trail. There's the western and the eastern terminus. So those are your starting and ending points. On the the western terminus, you are starting in the St. Croix basalts, where you have the Midcontinent rift, where the continent was ripping apart, and you had the um, eruption of the lava on the surface. And then on the eastern terminus in Potawatomi State Park, you're standing on the Niagara Escarpment looking out over Green Bay. So two completely different geologic time periods, but all encompassed by the same trail. So I always like to point that out. It's kind of cool. So moving on to the Ice Age, and why we have the Ice Age Trail to begin with. A glacier is pretty nifty. You have, if you think of like an ice cube, and you take an ice cube out of your drink and you drop it on the ground, it's going to shatter. And so we're familiar with ice behaving very brittly, where it breaks apart. But glaciers are unique when the ice accumulates thick enough to about 30 meters of ice. The ice will begin to flow plastically. So it'll be a very stiff Play-Doh. So it slowly oozes and mushes over time, flowing under its own weight. So it flows under its own weight in response to gravity. Um, and there's different parts of a glacier you can have where you have a lot of snow and mass being added to the glacier. We call that the accumulation zone. And then where you have the overall loss of ice, we call that the ablation zone. And if you have the opportunity to go and look at glaciers in a mountain region, it's pretty easy to see where the accumulation zone and the ablation zone are, because it's going to be a white line. So above that is the accumulation zone, and below that is the ablation zone. And glaciers form by snow. So you have snow that builds up and builds up and builds up over time, starting with about 90% air. And then as more and more snow falls on top of it, that air is compressed out until it turns into ice. So something when I'm teaching about glaciers in my Geology 101 classes, a lot of students think you just take water and freeze it, and you turn that into glacial ice. But glacial ice is not water that's been frozen. It's the accumulation of snow over time. Glaciers, because they flow plastically under their own weight, they act like little bulldozers moving across the landscape. So they flow very famously, glacially slow. They flow slowly, and they are very good at picking up rocks and moving them somewhere else. So the rocks can be stored on the inside of the ice, on the bottom of the ice, on the top of the ice. When a glacier sits there for a while, it kind of acts like a conveyor belt, and the sediment builds up into these piles in the front of the ice, and we call that a moraine. So during the most recent ice age, we looked at that video of the Laurentide ice sheet flowing in and out. We have different parts of the Laurentide ice sheet. They're called lobes. They're like little fingers on the ice sheet. And we give them names because I always tell my students that geologists love to name things. It's no longer just a hill. That hill has a very specific name that we'd like to give it. Same thing goes with our ice sheet. So we have different lobes of the ice sheet, different fingers of the ice sheet. Um, and you can see this is where those different lobes were about 30-ish thousand years ago. There were previous glaciations. There's been about 4 major glaciations over the last 2 million years. And the part of the state that's in green here, above this orange line, was glaciated prior to 30,000 years ago. And then there's this really nifty part of the state of Wisconsin called the driftless area that was not glaciated. There is no evidence of glaciation. If you have the opportunity to drive through the driftless area, it looks very different from the rest of the state. There's big cliffs and sandstone buttes and whatnot that don't exist in the other parts because they were smoothed out by glaciers. So the driftless area is called driftless because the glaciers didn't drift across it. Along those lobes, those fingers of ice, we had the glaciers were kind of hanging out there and depositing ridges of sediment by their conveyor belt. The sediment would just kind of, if the ice is sitting there, it's not really advancing, it's not retreating, it's called stagnant. It's just sitting in one spot for a couple hundred years, and it deposits sediment, creating this big ridge of sediment called a moraine, an end moraine. And we give end moraines different names based on their relative location to each other. So the furthest extent of the glacier, the furthest it moved south or east or west, however it was moving, is called the terminal moraine. So it's the furthest from the source of the ice is called the terminal moraine. And then the glacier might retreat and hang out there for a couple hundred years and form another moraine called an end moraine called a recessional moraine, and then retreat backwards, and then another moraine will be formed. So we have along the Ice Age Trail a series of moraines that you'll walk across. And then when you have 2 of those lobes coming together, you'll have these moraines building up on the side of the ice sheet of the lobe, and then those lobes come together and they create this big pile of sediment in the middle of the ice called a medial moraine. So I just want you to remember that on the edges of ice sheets, especially, this is an example from a mountainous area. A lateral moraine will form up on the edge of a mountain, and the sediment will build up. And then when you have 2 lateral moraines to come together, they'll form something called a medial moraine. And then out in front, where we have here, is called a end moraine, and the terminal moraine is the furthest one, and then you have recessional moraines behind it. The recessional moraines are younger than the terminal moraine. So the Ice Age Trail follows the end moraines. So on the left, we have a map of the end moraines in Wisconsin. The end moraines are indicated in red. You can see that there's lots and lots of different end moraines. Some of them are pretty continuous, some of them are broken up by erosion over time. And the Ice Age Trail follows along those end moraines for the most part. So it's this super long, skinny park that you get to explore. And you're following the end moraines as you do it. So the moraines that make up the any end moraine and the lateral moraines and medial moraines are made out of this unconsolidated, unsorted sediment called till. So unsorted means that it's all different grain sizes. So if you look at this person here, you can see larger pieces of gravel, and then you can see sand in the background, and there's probably some clay in there and some silt. These are all different grain sizes. And so, and it's all just a mishmash. There's no organization to this. It's not in a nice layered organization. It's just a blob, right? And this is because till is just pushed and deposited by the glaciers. And the glaciers, they just push it and then drop it. They're like my kids when I ask them to pick up their toys and they just like, oh, and they just grab things and then drop it on the ground. And there's no organization. What I like my kids to behave is more like outwash, where outwash is a little bit more organized and orderly. Here we don't see any boulders, right? We see big old gravel chunks here. We don't see that in outwash. The outwash is dominated by sand. And the outwash is found in front of the ice. So the glaciers, when they melt, there's lots of water flowing off of the glaciers. And those glaciers have these big streams out in front. And those streams will pick up the smaller size sediment and carry it in the stream water and then deposit it into these nice outwash deposits. So they're very sand dominated and they form these nice flat plains. So the outwash makes the flat plains where you have lots and lots of the moraines. You'll have along this red part, you'll have something called hummocky terrain. So along the end moraines, you'll have hummocky terrain. So hummocky means bumpy, right? Big variation in the landscape. The reason that we get this hummocky terrain is because along the edges of the ice, around the edge of those end moraines, you have ice blocks that will break off of the glacier. You'll have lots of sediment being deposited. You could have little lakes that are forming. And then eventually any ice that is lodged in the moraine sediment, the ice deposited sediment, the till, will melt away. And so it'll leave behind these holes, these little kettles that are left behind in the landscape. And you can get little flat parts of the landscape that we call ice walled lake plain. And they're going to be overlain by this lake sediment, and then you have glacial sediment down below. On the eastern edge of the trail. So down here in Walworth County, the trail swings up north. So you're going along here from St. Croix, down past my house in Wausau, over and up. So now when you go up, it's going through this part of the state. You had the Green Bay lobe and the Lake Michigan lobe. So the Green Bay lobe is called that because it went boop down through Green Bay, and then the Lake Michigan lobe is called that because it went through the Lake Michigan basin. So you had these two big lobes that met and created a more or less, for the lack of professional glacial geology terms, a medial moraine here. Okay, you had a lobe they created a whole bunch of glacial sediment that got deposited there. So in Wisconsin, we call that the kettle moraine. Um, but it's confusing for people when I take them on hikes. They will often be like, well, a moraine is just one ridge. But in the kettle moraine, we actually have a series of hummocky deposits. So it's not just one moraine, it's a whole bunch of different things happening. So you had the Green Bay lobe, the Lake Michigan lobe. There was a stream in between them. Um, the lobes had a whole bunch of sediment in them. Eventually, the lobes started to melt away, ablate away, and you were left behind by these ridges of sediment with a low area in between, with some interesting glacial formations in between those two major lobes. So, and the kettle moraine extends for quite a distance through this part. So some of the things that you'll see when you're hiking around, these are different glacial geology landforms. We can have an esker, so a glacier is solid ice, but sometimes there will be water flowing on top of the ice and through the ice, and underneath there can be a stream. And water, like we saw in the outwash, which is all made out of sand and it's nicely sorted. The stream will deposit these sediments on the bottom of the glacier, and then when the glacier goes away, you can see evidence of that um, uh, stream under the ice, and we call that it's like a windy ridge made out of sand. We call that an esker. Uh, there are also these features that are along the Ice Age Trail called a tunnel channel. A tunnel channel is where you have catastrophic discharge under the ice. So here we have ice, and then we have the bedrock down below, our sediment on sediment underneath the ice, and it's all frozen. So everything is frozen here, except there is a layer there where there is some water flowing. Um, the the ice will melt away, and it will leave a little bit, a lens of frozen ice underneath, and then it will collapse. And so you can see these sunken valleys with the flatter area on either side. You can see them in the landscape. So we're in this part of the lobe. You can see these tunnel channels. They're pretty apparent in the landscape themselves. And in my neck of the woods, if you ever have the opportunity to drive from the Twin Cities to Green Bay on Highway 29, Highway 29 is following a tunnel channel in Marathon County over by the Terminal Moraine, which is in Ringgold, Wisconsin. So the Highway 29 is in a tunnel channel, so it's kind of flat. The highway's in the flatter part, and then you kind of have these plains off to the side, and you're just driving in this sunken valley. Some other features you'll see on the Ice Age Trail are drumlins. Drumlins are made up of glacial till. There's much debate about how drumlins are formed. In Wisconsin at UW-Madison, we were taught that drumlins are formed when you have till that was like an end moraine, and then the glacier re-advances over the end moraine, and it turns this till into this elongate, steeper on the up ice side, less steep on the down ice side edge. But that is in the glacial geology world, that was a bit of a controversial thing. I say that because I was at a conference one time were grown men. I was only 21 at the time, and these grown men were yelling at each other about drumlins. And I was like, what is happening? Why are we yelling about glacial hills? So, but they had very different opinions about how drumlins were formed. They thought they were formed when the ice retreated, and the retreat gave it that shape. And in Madison, we were firmly told if you believed that, you would not graduate. So I can't support that. So then other things that you'll see along the Ice Age Trail are evidence of glacial lakes. So when we were watching that video of the ice sheet advancing and retreating, advancing and retreating, you saw lakes appearing and disappearing. So depending on where the lobe of the ice sheet was located, it could block off rivers. And then the water would continue to flow, and it would fill up these lake basins. And then when the ice went away, the water would leave the basin. Um, and so just where the main campus of Stevens Point is located, uh, it's very flat in that part of Portage County because it's on the very edge of glacial lakes. And then in especially on the eastern terminus, so in Door County, we can see evidence of the fluctuation of the Great Lakes. You can see ancient shorelines in the landscape as you're walking.
Lisa, a quick question then on
Yeah.
the drainage of the lakes. Did some of them go west to what would become the Mississippi, or did most of them concentrate towards the east?
From what I recall, because I remember I studied Greenland. From what I recall, it mostly went shoot, I think it went down to Wisconsin, which then went to the Mississippi. I should know that, and I'm so sorry I don't know the answer to that. I can't know everything. That's not one of the things that's stuck in my brain. I'm sorry I don't have
We
the
we always kind of pride ourselves when we can stump the lecturer.
Oh,
That's
I mean, from what I remember, it came like Glacial Lake, Wisconsin drained out the Wisconsin River.
yeah, okay.
Wisconsin River flows into the Mississippi River.
Right. And because I'm curious sometimes about the Chippewa River, which then helped form like Pepin on the Mississippi and such. I
Yep.
was wondering what the timing and the coordination and that sort of situation. Thank you.
Keep stumping me. That's what I'm here for. And then there is this if you ever I mean I know I just keep on selling you Minnesotans on Wisconsin, which is silly, but it's fine. There's this buried forest over on the it's actually this red star is not in the right spot. The red star should be up here. I stole this image from something else, but right here, where this is bumping out, there is a buried forest. So there was a glacier retreat and then a re-advance. Um, and there was enough time for a spruce forest to form. And then when the glaciers re-advanced, it took out the forest. And in the till, there are still logs that you can see if you go and hike. It's right on the edge of Lake Michigan. Um, and you can see these logs from 14,000 years ago sticking out, and they're not petrified. Like you could take a log and you can burn it in your fireplace if you wanted to. I beg you not to, but you can. So it's just normal wood. It's not petrified wood. So this is what the log looks like. It just kind of sticks out the side of the hill, and it's spruce forest that was run over by the tree advance. And this is on the segment, one of the segments of the Ice Age Trail. We'll walk right by this buried forest.
And about how old is that log?
14-ish thousand years ago.
Thank you.
Yep. I have one in my lab. I already called dibs on it. That one I'm not letting them throw away in a dumpster. So, I take a lot of people out on hikes, um, and on geology hikes along the Ice Age Trail, for school groups and whatnot. And um, things that I've noticed that people notice as they're hiking is they'll see that there's a hill, they'll notice that there's a depression in the landscape. They might notice that, especially if I give them a talk beforehand, they'll notice whether the sediment they're seeing is all sand or is it sand and gravel and clay. Sometimes they'll notice that the hills are pointing all in one direction, like we saw with all of the drumlins in a row. Sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, here's some rocks sticking out of the ground," or "Here I don't see any rocks sticking out of the ground. It's just a bunch of rolling hills." They might notice soil and vegetation differences. Actually, the thing that always makes me chuckle when I take people on geology hikes is well-meaning people will be like, "What tree is this? What type of moss is on this?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know anything about trees and moss. I'm so sorry." So they'll be interested in like the wildflowers, and I have no answers for them. People are walking on these trails. They're appreciating the landscape around them. Um, the Ice Age Trail Alliance does a great job with signage. They try to get interpretive signs, but the signs are at the very front at the trailhead. There are some books, like Dave's book, that explain it. And there are brochures, and the Ice Age Trail Alliance has different, um, they have an interactive website you can explore. Um, but the map itself, the Ice Age Trail map, which is maintained by the Ice Age Trail Alliance, and the geology don't all exist in one place. There's this gap in how to enjoy the trail and educate yourself as you're exploring the trail. So um, I decided, as part of the UW-Madison Cartography and GIS program, I decided to build an app that kind of solved that problem. There's 1,200 miles of trail. The trail covers multiple counties. Each county has its own GIS program that maintains its own data set. There are some statewide data sets, but there's no integrated platform to bring these different things together. And so I was like, well, I have a geology background. I already volunteer for the Ice Age Trail, and I need to come up with something for this master's program. Why not, why not do this? So that's what I went out to do. I made an app, and I'm going to demo it in a second, but I tried to make the geology visible. I tried to integrate existing bedrock data sets and surface data sets. And the goal is to support people who are hiking the trail so they can help identify, what is that hill? Why does that exist? Where is there a tunnel? If I wanted to see a tunnel channel, where would I go? If I wanted to stand on an esker and take a selfie and be like, I'm standing on an ancient stream, how can I get there? Um, and as part of the Capstone project, I had to focus on a group because they're like, hikers is too broad. And I was like, okay. So they told me to narrow my focus down to educators. So the Ice Age Trail Alliance, what they work with local fourth grade teachers to get fourth graders out onto the trail. And so you have these overworked fourth grade teachers who are getting a field trip day. They get to go on a yellow bus to a trailhead, and then they get to take their fourth graders out for a hike with a representative from the Ice Age Trail Alliance. But they don't know what they're doing. Like they're fourth grade teachers. Maybe they took one geology class like 15 years ago to get their science credit, but they may not remember and know what they're looking at. So I tried to make the app so it could support these teachers and support the volunteers who are out on the trail working with these students on the trail. And then I also wanted this app and the data I collected to be scalable. And so when I show you the app in just a second, um, I only focused on 4 counties because I needed to get this done in my spare time. I work full time and I have kids, and I was going to college on the side, and so I needed it to be something that I could do while maintaining all the other aspects of my life. So I only did 4 counties to start with. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen, and you guys feel free to ask me any questions before I jump into what's happening.
There is a question from you if you want to answer it now. It says one slide shows the Dora Peninsula and the Niagara escarpment. The escarpment is to the west, and the whoops, I lost it here. And the there we go. And the strata dips down to the east under Lake Michigan. Is there a reason for this dip? Is it due to the weight of Lake Michigan over time?
No, it's not due to the dip of Lake Michigan. It has to do with the continents, the plate tectonics and the continents moving around on the globe, and there was um, North America got smashed into, and so that caused all of the rocks to kind of bend. So in Wisconsin, I mean in Michigan, they dip down, and in Wisconsin they dip up. So it's kind of like this big wave as a result of a continental collision that took place. So there's this bend is not due to the lake itself, the weight of the water in the lake.
Well, that question came at the right time because your image is big, so we can see your hands.
Sorry. Yeah, I know. I'm a big hand talker.
Okay, that's the only. Oh no. Um, oh, there's a question about how to download the app, but I don't think you've gotten there yet. So
No, I'm not there yet. Okay. Do you see educator geologic map of the Ice Age Trail?
yes, it
Okay.
says welcome educators.
Whew. All right. So this is the app. I don't have it published anywhere because I am nervous about it. Yeah, I have imposter syndrome about it. Um, uh, but I'm going to walk you through it. So, so I need to preface this. I went back to school after the pandemic, when we all were locked in our houses. Um, I had an 8-month-old and a 3-year-old, and I kind of lost my mind and um, was like, okay, I need to do, I need to do something. And so I decided to go back to school. And so I went back to school, and I wanted to do something I'd never done before. So I went back to school for a web design GIS. So it's programming, coding that I'd never done before, and I learned so much that program, very much outside of my comfort zone. So I made this all from my own code, and it's all from by scratch by hand, and so it's not on. Like if you go to the Ice Age Trail Alliance, they have an interactive map. This is not that. So, anyways, a 4th grade teacher comes, they see, it tells you how to use the app. We close out of that. And then what we see here are the 4 counties I focused on. So Lincoln County, Langlade County, Marathon County, and Portage County. So UW Stevens Point is down here in Stevens Point. I live in Wausau, and then we have these other parts, other counties. And the reason I did this is just to keep it simple and to keep it closer to home if I needed to go out and do any ground truthing. I could easily drive there while my kids were at school. So what we see here in orangish yellow, this is the existing trail. So these are actual trail segments that you can walk through the woods. And then in this dashed line with the gray, those are called connecting routes. So those are roadwalks that you walk on the side of a county highway or other road to get to another segment. So there are people who will do a through hike of the entire trail system, and they'll walk a lot of it on the road. So there's about 700 miles of actual trail in the yellow line here, and then about 500-ish miles that you have to walk on the road. I haven't through hiked on it. Is anyone in this uh talk today? Is anyone a through hiker? Or a thousand miler, I should say.
I'm not seeing any responses.
Okay. Well, I see 52 potential thousand milers. Anyway,
Um, in regards to this, then, if you had, say, a day hike, a day, maybe you're out on the weekend or something like that, and just wanted to go for 10 miles or 20 miles, are there two or three or some locations that are really the coolest spots for a day hike?
I mean, it depends on how far you want to travel, but down here in Devil's Lake State Park, where this little blue dot is down here, that's where I would go
Okay.
because it's amazing. But I go out with my kids all the time, so I'm in Wausau and I drag them to the trail segments over here quite often. Um, and it's only a 20-minute drive from Wausau, so. Um, so yes, but there's so many segments. And it's all maintained by volunteers. It's just the coolest organization. I just love it so much. So anyways, so I got off track. So what
We
I did is I didn't collect it. There is state published data sets. This is what we're seeing in the background here. This is the superficial geology, and it was just published in April of 2025. So this is a brand new data set. And it's available on the Wisconsin Geologic Natural History Survey website. And so I imported this. And what I did is I tried to make it as understandable in language for each of these different layers. So I'm just kind of clicking around. I'm not expecting you to read this, but uh, I tried to make the lingo of each of these segments more understandable because when you collect it from the Wisconsin Natural History Survey, it's like, in geology jargon that you know, glacial geologists can interpret, but um, Sandy from Eau Claire, who's just a frazzled fourth grade teacher, is not going to try to like piece together and figure out. So I tried to make the pop-ups. That's what it was appears on the screen. I tried to make the pop-ups more understandable in language. So that's one data set. Then, so you can turn off glacial geology and turn on the bedrock geology. So the bedrock geology, now this was something I encountered in the middle of my project last fall. So I worked on this in my spare time during the fall. And the state of Wisconsin does not have a statewide geologic map that's digital. They have a PDF, but a PDF doesn't help you with creating pop-ups. You need to have feature data layers that you can manipulate with GIS. So when I discovered this, I was like, oh my goodness, I have a great student project. So I have put in for funding from the state government to have an undergraduate or a team of undergraduate students to help me in the fall create a statewide bedrock geologic layer. So you can see that there's some empty spots here that there's no data for, and it's just because I pieced their counties had some. Like Portage and Marathon County had good data sets, but Langlade and Lincoln County didn't have any. So the resolution it's all red basically. It's all red and purple. So the resolution is very different. So I'm going to stay tuned. I'm going to have undergraduate students digitize the published geologic map so that we have GIS data for it that can be used for this application and then other applications across the state. We'd make it publicly available and publish it. So I stay tuned, and maybe you want my undergraduates to come and talk to you about how they worked on that. So the bedrock data is showing a lot of what I talked about. Again, I tried to make the pop-ups a little bit more understandable based on when you look at if you download the data on the actual map, it'll say crazy words that a fourth grade teacher won't be able to understand. So there's two main geology layers there. In addition, I tried to create geologic points of interest along the trail. And I was not, my plan in September when I came up with this project was to go out on the trail and whimsically hike along and take pictures and do that. But turns out when you have two kids and a full-time job and you teach at a bunch of different schools and everything that's going on in life and they're in four different sports, you don't get to just go on for long whimsical hikes. So that's why I turned to Dave Michelson's book, The Geology of the Ice Age Trail. And I was like, okay, we'll start with those points of interest in the book to get us a head start. But, and I'm getting ahead of myself, I want to make these geologic points of interest much more robust along the trail. And there are so many people who hike the trail that take pictures, and I know they want to share them. So there's ways how I can collect data using different survey methods that will have when you take a picture, it's a geolocated photo. And so they can share their photos with me, and then I can sort through the photos and add photos to these points of interest. So right now there's no photos. And that was my own lack of time management and planning skills. But ideally, I want there to be a photo of this is what that looks like. So when you're hiking, this is what you should look out for. Because when I say, um, an ice wall lake plain, it's right there. Like you're like, cool. What does that look like when I'm hiking? That's the goal. Is I want to kind of make it more digestible and understanding. Um, let's see. Uh, when I click a segment, a trail segment, there's this panel on the right that populates. And so each segment has a name. So the Dells of the Eau Claire segment, if you wanted to come and visit me in Wausau, this is where I would take you. The Dells of Eau Claire is a bedrock gorge where you have these rapids, and it's just gorgeous cutting through, and it's a part of the Ice Age Trail. So I describe the segment, and ideally, again, in the future, I want to have pictures down here. Uh, and then I describe, okay, why is that segment? What is geologically interesting about the Dells of Eau Claire segment? So I talk about the bedrock of that segment, the glacial geology of the segment, different points of interest that occur along the segment. Ideally, again, I want to have pictures of what that looks like. And then because a lot of people, when you use words like Adele and crystalline rocks and things like that, people who may not have a deep geology knowledge, I also want to link them to resources that explains what that is. So when I use the word joint up here. A joint is a fracture in the rock. So here's a video that explains how joints form in rocks. It's just for like if you wanted to add to your knowledge. And see how some of these things are formed. And then the thing that the teachers, my daughter's in fourth grade, and so I I bought the teachers beer and I had them come meet me at a bar so they could look at my app and talk to me about what they would find really useful. What they said unequivocally is we just want activities. We want things that we can do with our students to bring these concepts, these different geologic concepts alive. And so I worked with them to create a few different projects and activities for each segment. And so it has a PDF activity that they can download, and it includes like, what to do with the students, how to assess the students' understanding, how long it will approximately take, and whatnot. And there's a lot of opportunity for growth here because I came up with like 8 different activities and repeated them throughout the different segments. So there's lots of opportunity for expanding this and tailoring it even more. Let's see. I'm going.
Lisa,
Yes, sir.
questions. We had somebody said, asked the question, do you need assistance on this, and how do we get a hold of you? Can you send me the links to the Ice Age Trail volunteer group and to the Wisconsin, and we'll put those up on our website. We're trying to add any links to groups and organizations they've had. And as far
Yep.
as pitching Wisconsin, whenever I ask for people to give us a talk, I say think in terms of 80% geology and 20% Department of Tourism. So we got a lot of people who will come over and check this out. And so we would like any links you've got, and I'll contact you here the next day or so, and we'll get those up on
Yeah.
our website.
Yes, and there's lots. I saw there was somebody in the chat that was from Marshfield. So I welcome the Marshfield team to join the Central Moraines chapter of the Ice Age Trail. So each county that it has a segment of the Ice Age Trail and it has its own volunteer chapter. And the one for Marathon County is called the Central Moraines chapter. And it's like it's when I retire, I am going to dedicate my time to the Ice Age Trail. Like they do different trail building events over the summer because they're trying to expand the trail so that it connects. And so very slowly over time, the Alliance is buying sections of land along the trail and building trail on those sections. And it's just like the most kumbaya. Like you work like a dog for 8 hours and then you go camp in this field and they're feeding you delicious chili and you share some spotted cows around a bonfire. It's just delightful. I love it. Um, so yes, there's lots of opportunities to get involved in. Yeah, please email me anything. So for the future, my goal is to make the geologic points of interest more robust because I just used Dave's book. I want to get pictures. I want to have community involvement. There's ways how I can link um, uh, community input into this map itself so this is something of a geologic point of interest I would like you to include, and then I can vet it. I can say that's cool or that's not cool and add it. And then that person can get a citation for their efforts. Uh, of course, I would love to expand it to other parts of the trail system to make it full. And that I met with the Ice Age Trail Alliance. That's the headquarters down in Cross Plains, and they were so ecstatic by this. They kind of knew I was thinking about doing this, but I met with them last April and I gave a talk at the Ice Age Trail annual conference about my idea of doing this, and then actually doing it, and then now it's somewhat of a reality. They're pretty excited about it, and so. They have a few things they want me to do that before I can publish this, but they are considering hosting this app on their website, um, which would be a dream come true for me. So, time slowly but surely making progress toward making that a reality. So, I think that's about it. I did add this fancy little code that puts the trail up in the front. So I was losing my mind and coming up with it's called feature creep when you make too many features on your app. So that's my demo. Um, and I have a couple more slides I can show you. Uh, let's see. Uh-oh. How do I get over there? There we go. So, in case you zoned out and I went too fast and I wasn't clear, the different features, interactive web map features that you can do with my app is you can turn the layers on and off. You can click on the segments. There's different pop-ups that you can explore. You can see on the right-hand panel the different geologic processes and different activities. And envisioned a teacher exploring it, like if they got assigned, okay, you're going to drive out to the Dellsville Clear segment, and they could explore that segment to get an idea of what they're going to see. And the Alliance was very excited because they have lots of people who are retired and want to volunteer to represent the Ice Age Trail Alliance with those fourth grade classrooms. They're the volunteers, but they may not have geology background to fully explain what the students are going to see on the trail. So they were pretty giddy about this being a reality that they could explore. So I worried about getting too much into this, but so that what the app you just saw was was more or less like my thesis for my most recent master's degree at from Madison. I built it using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Um, 4 years ago, I would have not known what any of these things were. And now I can use them and make pretty cool things with them. So all these different coding languages. Um, there's an API that allows me to link data. So the trail line that you saw on my map, the orange line, I don't maintain that. That's maintained by the Alliance. And so if they were to suddenly build 20 more miles of trail, that would update automatically on my map. So that's what having the API allows me to do. So it allowed me to grab data from various sources and put it all in one spot. And then my goal is to integrate all the different data sets into one spot to make it easier for people to fully explore the geology.
Thank you, Lisa. Another question came up. Is there an extension of the Ice Age Trail into Minnesota?
No, there is not an extension of the Ice Age Trail into Minnesota.
Is it because there's no actual Ice Age Trail there, or is it because we've never actually gotten around to it? What's the status, or any ideas on that? I mean, that's on the other side of the border, a whole other political regime, I understand, but
I should know more about it, but the boundaries are the state. So the it I don't know if that could possibly change now that it's a national park, but it was a state trail. It was a national trail and a state trail, and it just recently, about a year and a half ago, became a subset of the national park system.
in geology, we talk about normal faults and reverse faults. We also have something called a state line fault, which is the result of political boundaries as opposed to anything to do with geology. So that may be maybe a state line fault issue.
I think you're right. All right. Are there any other questions? I mean, I see I went super over. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
no,
that's
but
fine. We get a little extra for the same. Yeah, I'm going to go what's in the chat first of all from Zenobia. First, this app is amazing. I want to walk the trail, but by walking along the trail and following the moraines, are there great differences in elevation?
No, well, there are up in the northern part. The moraines are a little bit more hefty. So there's more elevation change up there. But it's not going to be super strenuous anywhere you go because it's just kind of rolling topography. But it
And
also depends on your fitness level and what you want to do. And mud season's upon us, so I would not, I would avoid.
that sounds like a good idea. From Chris, there's a question: is the app called RockD, ROCKD?
That is an app that exists. My app is not called that.
Okay. And from what you said earlier, you're not making it public available at this time. Is that
It's
correct?
not publicly available at this time because it's not finished. It's not
Okay.
finished enough. I just need to find, time to get it to where I want it to be. I want to get more pictures in there and make it a little bit more user friendly.
Well, when you do make it public available, let us know.
I will.
Okay. Are you thinking in the next year or you think it's further out?
Yeah. Yes. I am thinking in the next year.
That'd be great. Um, From Kate, are there interpretive signs along the trails?
There are some, not a ton. I just worked with a few Eagle Scouts in Milwaukee area to help them with some geologic signs along a segment down there, but there's not a lot.
Okay, from Diane, there's more of a comment. Wow, Lisa, your app is amazing. This is a quantum leap from roadside geology of Wisconsin. If I'm grateful for such a wonderful outcome from the pandemic. So, but then of course we'll be even more grateful when you make it publicly available. Okay, Steve's already covered the next question from Wolfgang, and then there's a comment here from Mary Kay. What a great set of ideas. Thanks for your enthusiasm, particularly emphasis on education. Best wishes for all your activities. And Zenobia, can't wait for it to go public. And from Chris, Lisa, I'd love to volunteer to help. I'm a retired science teacher.
Excellent.
So, Chris, make sure you let us, we can put you in contact with Lisa, obviously. You can probably figure out how to do it yourself, but if not, we can do it. And let's see what's under Q&A here. Let's see, where's the Q&A? Here we go. There's a question from Andy. I think you basically answered this way. Would you be open to help in continuing to build out the app? So sounds like another volunteer for you. So once again, get in touch. You can get back to me because you have my, and I can certainly get you in touch with Lisa, or Steve can too. But you know how to get to me because I send the emails out. And from Steve, have you considered working with the IATA interns to flesh out your information and expand to other counties?
I haven't inquired with the Ice Age Trail Alliance to see if they'd be open to that. My meeting with them was just a couple weeks ago where I did basically the same walkthrough with them.
And let's see what else we have here. From you, do you expect your app to be used by someone actually on the trail? If so, is internet access available along the trail?
It is mobile friendly, but I wouldn't think that you would want to use it along the trail. I find hiking to be where you let let go of your technology, but it is possible. There's also an app that the Ice Age Trail uses called Far Out, and it has the trail segments in it. So people download that app onto their phone and they can use it offline. I met with them last year when I was brainstorming this idea to see if this is something they would like some of the geology layers and points of interest would be something they'd like to include as part of their mobile app. And it's was not a no, but it was also not a yes.
Okay, and I have a fairly long comment here from Mary Helen, basically encouraging her to do you to do a bunch of stuff. This app looks terrific, absolutely excellent. Should you publish now or very soon? She says yes, just label it a beta edition. Should you call for crowdsourced photos, then publish the curator one? She says that yes, absolutely. Should the app include a caveat that while the app itself may be accessible for screen readers, and I hope it is, most of the trail is not accessible for wheelchair users.
Yeah.
And if possible, I'd recommend marking the segments that are accessible and whether a heavy duty chair is needed for those sections, since very few of those are available.
Yep. All good
So,
feedback. Thanks, team.
and let's see, there's a few more things here. Lisa gave her that's your email address, right, Lisa?
Yep.
You put it in the chat. And someone wants the educational credit form. I'll take care of that.
I think that's
Any other questions?
I think that about wraps it up for tonight. We can take questions and we can fire them off to you. And this is more one of these ongoing things. We're not going to answer everything here tonight. I think we're going to take it as a starting point, not as a finishing point. Thank you very much, Lisa, for an excellent, excellent
well,
talk.
thanks for having me, and thanks for sharing your ideas and for listening to me drone on and on.
Well, dude, that was a wonderful talk. Thank you very much. A good review of Wisconsin geology as well. So, well, thank you all for tonight, and we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks for everybody who's joining our group. And thank you again. Good night, all.